The August 21st meeting of the Eden Prairie City Council will now come to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to the start of each council meeting, which is generally the first and third Tuesdays of each month, we have an opportunity for citizens to address the council on issues regarding city business during a portion called Open Podium. If you are interested in speaking to us at that point in time, please call the city manager's office at 949-8412 by noon of the date of the meeting with your name, phone number, and the subject matter you wish to discuss. If time permits, after scheduled speakers are finished, then we do open it up to impromptu unscheduled speakers. Just a note, these portions of the meeting are not televised or recorded. If you have any questions, again, please contact the city manager's office. The first section of our meeting today is proclamations and presentations. And before we get on to the first item, I'd just like to bring up the fact that yesterday we had the honor of being selected by Money Magazine as one of their top places to live in the United States. Cities between 50 and 150,000. Last time they did this was 2 years ago, and we were number 1. We are again in the top 10. This year we ended up number 3, and we're delighted with that. I think a big thank you goes out to all the members of the community who helped make this a wonderful place to live. And when I think back of all the components that make a community and the things that the reporter for Money Magazine looked at, whether it be the quality of the schools, the variety of churches available, the economic situation within the community, the average educational level of people within the community, standards of living, crime levels, everything. There are so many people that should be thanked for all that they do to make this community a wonderful place to live. But I think a big hats off goes to really our predecessors and school board predecessors and the early members of our community who really laid down the road plan of how Eden Prairie was going to develop, because it is a beautiful community and it's nice to be recognized. So thank you, everybody. The first thing then is edible playground donation. Mr. Lahammer.
Yes, Your Honor, council members, I have the pleasure of tonight having you accept a gift on behalf of an anonymous donor for the edible playground, which is located at Prairie View Elementary. And this came about, Mayor Tara Lukens was approached by a family in our community that's very interested and dedicated to improving kids' choices to healthy eating opportunities, as well as having an opportunity to learn where food comes from, that the little orange carrots out of the bag aren't the only way that you can get carrots. And so we were inspired. We had a couple members of our staff, Beth Witt, Nicole Weedman, and then also Doug Ernst from our maintenance staff really took it upon themselves to come up and plan a successful community garden. And in front of you at the council table, I've got some photos, as well as if we can go to the camera, the document camera, and take a look. There's some photos of the way that the garden started out in the spring, and then it became a living, really well-producing garden, even as we speak. The idea is of an edible playground, and the reason that we selected this is that down the road, the planting would happen by the kids that are in the schools. So a lot of us remember that little styrofoam cup with a pea in it, and it grew in the window of our elementary classroom. Our goal is that this can happen right outside, and maybe they do grow those over the wintertime and transplant some of those plants. And the other piece that's pretty neat about this program, you can go to the website for Edible Gardens. They've set up quite a bit of curriculum. If I was an elementary school teacher, I would go to their website and I would grab a lot of the resources that they have. It isn't just about gardening, it's about using the quantities that you might have of soil in some of the containers to work on math. It might be working or learning more about the science of how things grow or genetics, and really being able to see that unfold. The other piece of why we chose this location is it's a summer playground program. And this year being that it was our first year and that we got the program up and going a little bit later than it will be in the future, it was all done by our summer playgrounds program. And the kids that attended that location were working in the garden every single day. We also implemented once a week, we had a local nutritionist that would come and they would do some activities like Nutrition Detective, where the kids would have to go on a scavenger hunt. Not all of it was surrounding the garden. Some of it might be where they had to look at labels of different food products and find out what was good and what was bad. And then maybe that afternoon, out of the garden, they would have some cucumber chips and some salsa that was made from the tomatoes and some of the other things that were grown in the garden. So the kids, I think, really benefited from it. We're looking at making that connection even further with the school so that this can keep moving forward. Our anonymous donor, the family, met with us out there about a week ago and couldn't be happier with what their thought and vision was and how it unfolded. We got great feedback from the parents of the kids that were in the program. There's some really good stories of, young kids talking about, finding that worm in the soil that they wouldn't have ever expected to be there, or actually tasting some of the lettuce that wasn't the traditional iceberg lettuce that they might get as a head in the supermarket, and some of them thinking, well, that's maybe a little too bitter for me, but some of them liking some of the different varieties of lettuce. So for the people that work there and were really in contact with the garden, it was a very rewarding program, and we're looking forward to being able to keep moving that forward in the community. So the action item tonight is to accept the donation, and the donation amount is $8,776. We were able to, I think, put some really good value into it by some of the skills and talents of our park maintenance staff in helping build and grade the site. So we were able to probably take a $14,000 project and have a cost of closer to that $8,000 or $9,000. We also received, as part of the funding, an $850 grant from the Minnesota Recreation and Parks Association for their new initiatives program. And so Nicole and Beth will be at our state conference coming up, and part of the requirement of getting that grant is that they have to go and report on this new initiative in hopes that other cities will learn from it and benefit from our new initiative. And we believe that this will be a sustainable initiative as well that we'll see continuing to go from year to year. And so we really are introducing the youth to gardening. We, in our garden plots, we have 122 community garden plots, all of them filled. And so I think gardening is something that is really popular, and people are seeing the benefits of growing some of their own food.
Thank you. I hope all of you get a chance to go out there and see it. And I'd love to have a report a year from now when teachers have had the opportunity to incorporate this into their curriculum.
Sure.
So is there a motion?
Can I ask one question first?
Sure.
Are we going to try to put this out to the other 3 grade schools as well? Because it seems like it is a really good program, but when only 1/4 of the kids in the city have access to it, it seems like it's a little unfair.
We're talking about how we can do it in a little bit different concept in other places in the city, because the other school locations, we don't have a summer playground, and that's when probably 70% of the actual work and growing really happens. And so that's why this is the perfect fit for this concept. Is it gets started when the school year's kind of wrapping up. It really takes off over the summer when we have playground kids at that particular site, and then it wraps up when school gets back in session. And some of these kids are the same kids that are at that school and in the playground. We don't have that same situation at other schools. So we may be looking at how do we do it as a different concept, where maybe it's almost like a program where you as a young child would get to have a garden plot, almost like our community gardens, but we may try to recruit like a master gardener that would be there on Monday nights from 6 to 7 to help out, and maybe a nutritionist that would come through. But this concept worked really well at Eden Lake, or not, I'm sorry, not at Eden Lake, but at Prairie View, but it doesn't have the same kind of support structure at any of the other elementary schools. So it would be a different looking concept, but we're definitely trying to figure out what would that look like, because this has been very successful.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I would move to adopt a resolution accepting $8,776 from an anonymous donor for funding of the edible playground.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Healthy Communities Resolution. Mr. Latimer.
Yes, these two items fit very well right next to each other. And what you have before you tonight is a resolution on healthy eating and active living. We've recently worked with the Obesity Prevention Coalition, and this is a resolution then that they have had experience working with. And one of the things that we're finding, and you've continued to see it in the media, is all of the health issues that are creeping up on kids of these last couple generations. And when you look at some of the statistics, that 1 in 3 are overweight or obese before they're 5. When you look at nearly 63% of Minnesotans with weight issues, and what that can do to our cost of health insurance and things. Mayor Terry Lukens was at a national conference where one of the sessions was, how do we as cities fit into that process, and what do we do that can help keep our kids and also our communities healthy? And so engaging with the Twin Cities Obesity Prevention is one way to do that, to make people aware of some of the things that they can do and some of the problems that this creates. And so tonight, as a part of the resolution, we have from the Twin Cities Obesity Coalition, Dr. Peter Donnell, who would like to speak to you and tell you a little bit more about their mission. And then once he's done, I'll relay to you a little more information about what we as a city already do and are looking at doing to be able to help with this fight against obesity. So, Dr. Donnell, if you would.
Good evening, Your Honor and members of the City Council. I want to applaud you on behalf of the Twin Cities Medical Society, who is a sponsor of the Twin Cities Obesity Prevention Coalition, for considering this resolution. Communities play a very essential role in helping all of us to be healthier in terms of our lifestyles, healthier eating, healthier lifestyles, getting more exercises, all the things that will be needed to add with the physicians of your community to help your citizens be healthier. The Twin Cities Medical Society represents about 5,000 physicians across Minneapolis and St. Paul, the 7-county metro area. And we, like I say, on behalf of the TCMS, we wish to applaud your efforts in this regard. This is a very important component of obesity prevention and treatment, and anything that you can do is much appreciated. This will also add to your continued endorsement as one of the better places to live across the nation. So I would be happy to answer any questions that you would have, but otherwise, I just, like I say, want to commend you and applaud for considering this resolution.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Donnell? Yeah.
I just have one question, and that is, has there been any studies that you know of that look at the effectiveness of cities adopting things like this in terms of helping with the issues and the problems?
Unfortunately, there has not been a lot of studies looking at the long-term efforts. We do have an opportunity, and Eden Prairie would be actually a great test site to do some of that work, and that would be a further discussion that we may be able to partner with you in terms of looking at the outcome of adopting this kind of a resolution. There's only one other city in Minnesota that has adopted this resolution so far. There are others which are considering it. So, like I say, it would be an opportunity. We'd love to partner with you in looking at that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Mr. Lothammer, anything else?
Yeah, so to tell you just a little bit more about what we as a city are doing, and I think have been doing some of these efforts for quite a long time. Obviously, our mission is to give people enjoyable leisure time, opportunities for all segments of our population, and I think some of these slides will show that. Think about all the people that are going through at our community center, over 680,000 people. A lot of them, if not in an exercise class, are there doing something that's fairly active. When we recently looked at selecting a play structure for an indoor play structure, in our RFP, we were very forthright about wanting something that encouraged a lot of movement activity so that kids could get some of that cardiovascular endurance work as while they were playing, and maybe not even knowing that they were getting more fit, just having a good time. But quite a few fitness things happen at the community center, as well as just some good social meetings as well. Some of our youth programs, a lot of them have been happening during this summer. Hundreds of kids that are involved in our playground camps, learning lessons like golf lessons, archery, tennis. When you think about teaching kids how to be successful at some of these sporting activities, that allows them to have it so it's more enjoyable, and hopefully it causes them to engage in that more often and be even more active. We want to make sure that we cover all segments of our community, ages, abilities. Quite a few kids taking place through our therapeutic recreation program in a young athletes program, kind of inspiring them with some of the Olympic themes this year to really embrace movement and be active, as well as a dance program. Also taking this out into the future and helping people stay active. Quite a big year in 2011 with 669 teams, over 8,700 people playing in our sporting leagues that we sponsor and put on as a city. Our Youth Athletic Association, 16 different athletic associations that we as a city help support, whether it's through facilities, liaisons. You see them every once in a while come to the council looking to help with some of their facility needs, and I think that's a big benefit of a lot of volunteers that work with kids and just drive down Pioneer Trail some nights and look left and right, and you'll see a lot of kids moving and running around. So I think that's something we're very fortunate to have, some people in our community that take on these types of roles. The Senior Center, this has been a busy past couple of years for active people out of the Senior Center, and if you look at some of the active programs, the biking club, sometimes 20 to 30 miles they'll ride in a day. Pickleball, Mr. Getcho and I are usually teammates, and I don't know that we could beat many of the seniors that are playing down there. In fact, we'd be out of breath fairly soon having them cause us to chase it around. So it's a very active group when you go down and in and around the Senior Center these days. The edible playground, taking that step to nutrition, teaching kids where food comes from, and maybe getting them to try some things that they never have before. We had a few peer pressure techniques that we used and mixed a few things in on them during our afternoon snacks there. Our community gardens, like I mentioned before, 122 plots, all 122 were sold, and I think we could have sold even more had we had them in the spring. All of the park amenities that we're fortunate enough to have here, causing people or giving them the opportunity to recreate, go by Purgatory Creek any time of day almost, and you'll see bikes and walkers and joggers. As I've been visiting Round Lake Park with our construction happening there, I can't believe how many people on bikes with dogs are even kind of skirting around the construction area, even if it isn't the best place at this time. It's a pretty active place. Again, the trails are a big opportunity for people to get out and walk with their family. The walks and runs have been very popular. We don't ourselves as a city put any on directly, but we supported over 22 different walks and runs, most of them for charity in 2011 too. So people are getting out and being active. Some of those are youth benefit runs or have that youth age group. Our employee health engagement, you've heard some about that in some of Mr. Getcho's Friday reports. You'll see some of the activities, but we had some things, competitions internally where sometimes we were quick eating our lunch on the way back to work because we'd been off playing in a little bit of a pickleball tournament over lunch, or even some bago and things like that. Also had the Way to Go challenge where 143 employees participated, so a really good percentage of people that were a part of that. We've had lunch and learn seminars where we'll hear from nutritionists, and I usually feel guilty when I'm sitting there with the type of lunch I'm eating, listening to what I should be eating, but It's really good programs that get brought right into City Hall. Another round of assessment programs are coming up for us within the next few weeks, where we get to learn a lot about ourselves and try to stay healthier and help with some of our health costs. And then the community-supported agriculture concept came to City Hall this year for the first time. If you were here earlier today, you would have seen boxes that looked like apple crate boxes. And as I poked my nose in them, there were some watermelons, some cantaloupes, there were beets, there were lettuce, tomatoes. And so that's something that we as employees can take advantage of, where a agricultural small farm, usually it has to be very certified or close to a certifiable organic. They bring it here to the employees, and the employees bring it home, very fresh and high-quality types of produce that we have. Also, our Live Well, we continue to have that as a tagline, use it as our philosophy on how we're trying to put together programs for our residents as well as for the employees. And if you look back to some of the awards that we've won or some of the acknowledgments lately, Hennepin County Wellness Design Gold Award in 2012, the Money Magazine that has been mentioned, the Step Up to Health Community in 2007 we were designated, Governor's Fit City in 2006, the MRPA, Minnesota Park and Recreation Association Award of Excellence for some of the archery programs that we've had, and also the Best Hikes in the Twin Cities by the Minnesota Public Radio, and our Step to It Challenge in 2010. So quite a bit of acknowledgement of the efforts that have happened in the city, and again, we're fortunate to live and work in a city that has so many opportunities and is committed to keeping not just youth, but I think all age ranges and abilities and capabilities active and healthy within our community. So with that, you have the resolution before you, and I would also answer any questions if you should have them.
I do have one question. This seems like it would be a primary initiative to get a farmer's market going on city property some way by next summer. And so if we're going to do this, I would really like to look into getting a farmer's market going, either at one of the parks, using one of the park parking lots, something off, a more major street or something. We've been talking about that for years. It's wonderful to have the vegetable plots and the edible playground, and employees getting some CSA boxes, but that's not the same as a farmer's market once a week.
That's true.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to bring that up under council members' reports, so I'm glad that you brought that up. We did look at it, I don't know how many years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, but times have changed. And based upon a couple years ago when Eden Prairie Reads read the book Animal Vegetable Miracle and had the big event at the community center, and there were lots of people that showed up there, lots of interest in CSAs and organic food and fresh from the farm items. I think that we need to re-examine that too. So.
Just to remind everybody, I don't disagree that it would be great to have a farmer's market at some point, and I think it's worthy of looking into it again. But we do have three local farmers that whose families go back 3 and 4 generations that serve our community. So just to remind people, the Pica Farm and the Marshall Farm and then the Seaver Peterson Farm. So we are really fortunate as a community to have that, and if that's important to people, I would certainly encourage people to frequent those farmers markets.
All right. Thank you. Is there a motion?
I would move to adopt the resolution declaring Eden Prairie to be a healthy eating and active living community.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and thank you for that great overview of what we're doing as a city, Mr. Lotthammer. And I just kudos to your staff, because when I came in with the idea of the edible playground and with this resolution, everybody was very supportive and wanted to do it and threw themselves into it with lots of enthusiasm. So thank you.
It was very rewarding for all of us that got to work on it. So
yeah, it's fun. It's
project.
beautiful. Thank you. Okay, is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to add?
Mayor, I have one. I'd like to provide under report of city manager an update on Comcast franchise agreement and studio access, public access studio. You asked about that last month. We had that on. So I'd like to add that to my report. And then you'll see, too, we have a goldenrod update, minor update on one of the consent items as well.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All in favor of the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the council workshop held on Tuesday, May 17th?
Move approval.
Second.
I'm sorry, July 17th. It says May in here, but it's July.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It says May, July.
Yeah.
Long workshop.
It's a new month.
Okay, did you make the motion, Mr. Aho?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, and I do have one correction.
Okay, one correction.
Just on page 2 on the 4th paragraph, Councilmember Aho and I are both talking about how great it is to keep the budget low and the taxes low. And when it comes to my statement, I talk about it being important to stay under 1%, and that's the levy. So I just wanted to make sure that that was in there as levy.
Yeah.
Because it does get confusing. The three relate to each other, but they're all different.
Okay, thank you for making that correction.
And I'd like them all to stay low, too, but particularly the levy.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the city council meeting held July 17th?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections there? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We need a motion for approval of the items on the consent calendar. There are 2 items in goldenrod. Did you want to point out anything on those, Mr. Getchell?
The one actually was a slight change to the resolution that you did for
Okay.
healthy living, and then this is related to the subordination of an agreement that we have with the Bluffs at 9 Mile Creek related to HUD financing.
Okay.
Move approval of items A to M on the consent calendar, then with the 2 slight corrections.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. First public hearing tonight is a resolution vacating public right-of-way easement over part of Sky Lane. And I know, Mr. Rosso, you had something to point out on this one?
Yes, Your Honor. The resolution on the vacation should have added to it paragraph 3 that appears on the resolution that follows for the next public hearing on the vacation of drainage and utility easements. It's the paragraph that states this resolution is contingent and shall not be effective until the plat of the meadows at Riley Creek has been recorded with the County Recorder Register of Titles as applicable. The city clerk shall not present the notice of completion of proceedings to the county auditor or file it with the county Recorder Register of Titles until the plat is recorded. And that's a protection that the easements don't go away until the new easements of the new plat are in place.
Okay. So that item 3 should be on both of those
Yes, and we
vacations.
would correct the official copy if it's adopted
All
that way
right.
by the council.
Any questions of staff? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on the vacation of the right-of-way easement on Sky Lane? Okay, is there a motion?
Seeing none, I would move to close the public hearing and adopt the resolution vacating the public right-of-way easement over part of Sky Lane as dedicated on the recorded plat of Cedar Hills West, Hennepin County, Minnesota.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. It brings us to the next resolution, which is vacating drainage and utility easements lying over, under, and across Lot 1, Block 3, Cedar Hills West. Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Getchell?
Mayor, no. As you can see, the first public hearing was related to right-of-way. That wasn't necessary. The second public hearing, same project, related to the Meadows at Riley Creek project, is drainage and utility easements that are not needed. And then with the plat of the Meadows at Riley Creek, we'll obtain the necessary new easements that we need.
Okay. Any questions of staff? This is a public hearing. Again, is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on this easement?
Seeing none, I would move to close the public hearing and adopt the resolution vacating all the drainage and utility easements lying over, under, and across Lot 1, Block 3, Cedar Hills West, according to the recorded plat thereof, Hennepin County, Minnesota.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, Parks and Recreation Fees and Charges. Mr. Lotthammer.
Your Honor, council members, as has been our custom, we bring these fees to you earlier than when you see all of them in December, all city fees. And the reason we bring the Parks and Recreation fees to you now is because we are about to go out for our printing of our January, February, March brochure, which would list these fees. So we want to give an opportunity for residents to be able to give feedback, comment. We've brought this to the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Commission, who has looked at the fees, heard presentations about them, and is unanimously recommending them. It's also been published as a public notice in the Eden Prairie News for tonight. We've provided all of the fees, but there's also a chart in here that talks about any of the fees that are showing an increase. And most of them are similar to the ones that you've seen in the past, where we go up 2 or 3% in our memberships at the community center. We've made some adjustments on our ice time, $5 per hour, so a fairly small amount. There's a couple of pricing categories where we're just bringing them into line for more consistency between if you're a resident, if you're a school group, if you're a non-resident, so it might be a little easier to understand why the differences are there than in the past. So certainly if you have any questions about any of them in particular, I'd be happy to answer that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lightheimer? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on park and rec fees? Okay, is there a motion?
Seeing none, I move to close the public hearing and approve proposed parks and recreation fees and charges for inclusion in the 2013 budget.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Item D, Mitchell Crossing Apartments, 2012. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You may recall this item was on our last meeting in July and referred back to the Planning Commission. Mitchell Crossings Apartments is a request for a guide plan change from community commercial to high-density residential on 3.105 acres. In addition, on the same 3.105 acres is a planned unit development concept review with waivers, a zoning district change, a preliminary plat, and as was discussed at the last meeting, this is our first apartment project that we've had here in a number of years, and we had quite a bit of discussion at the last council meeting, and the project was taken back to the Planning Commission at their meeting last week, I believe, and is coming back to you again with a recommendation for approval with waivers and some conditions. But I know the project proponent is here to address the council as well.
Okay. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Council, Mayor. Nice to be back. And I will say that I congratulate all of you. Thank you for what Eden Prairie is about. I'm very proud to say that I'm a resident, and it really is got great leaders, and I mean that very sincerely to everybody. To go through tonight, I didn't have a whole lot of, if you're okay if I'm going to sit down, I've got a
Sure.
nervous twitch up here, so I'm going to sit down
Okay.
and we can address some slides. I've had some very good meetings with the staff between the meetings that we've had. It's been very, very productive. I want to thank Leslie Stormer and Stu Fox. We met on site today. We walked the paths. I met with Mike Franzen. I met with the traffic group last week. It was very productive, and I think we've all come to some real good solutions, and everybody's worked together, and I thank everybody for that. There's just a couple items that are still lingering, very small items. It was kind of ironic, actually. At our meeting last week, I wanted to add parking, and they wanted to take parking away. So I told Mike how interesting that was. But there's two things that we're still needing to address. They've asked that we provide 2 either hybrid cars or electric cars for the building. We have our group here involved. Stephen Scott Management, they've had one before. We're open to the idea of one. We'd love to bring one over. A rental car, an hour car. The city staff has asked for 2 of them. What we'd like to propose is to bring one of them in, and if it gets used maybe 50% of the time, we can kind of track it over a 24, 40-month period and see how it's accepted. They've also asked that we supply 20 bicycles. We would like to provide 10, and again, to see how those get used. And then if I could just kind of walk through, here's what's changed since last time we had the 192 units. This is why we went back to the planning, because what happened is the building size was actually reduced from 214,000 square feet with 188 units. It was reduced to 211,000 square feet, but the unit count went up because we switched the unit mix. Building overview, these are some of the things that I thought we would share with the group today to see kind of what our intentions are of the building, the lighting structures, the decorative fencing. Mr. Franzen suggested we do some real nice walkways between the building and Buca that would encourage walking, and larger sidewalks, stamped concrete, that type of thing. We think it'll be a real nice touch. They also asked that we provide bike storage and parking in the garage, and you can see that this is the interior of the garage that will be fenced off in the garage for bicycles. I would also ask to introduce Kevin Teppen here. I know last time we talked about, and I know the council had mentioned the possibility of some flowering plants and some vegetation, flowers, and if I could introduce Kevin Teppen with MFRA, just to speak briefly on that, if you wouldn't mind. Kevin?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kevin Teppen. I'm a landscape architect with MFRA, and I was asked to just come and kind of describe a little bit of what we're doing for the flowering plants and shrubs around Mitchell Crossing. As you can see in your updated packet, I'm assuming that there's an updated landscape plan where we went ahead and added a column to the plant list to indicate which plant material would have flowers on them, going from understory trees to shrubs to perennials, to help you kind of understand and see which of the material and how much of the material that's being proposed would actually have flowers over the course of the spring, summer, and fall. The material is really scattered throughout the property, so a fair amount of it is along the south side, which is along Buca, as well as there is some along the west side of the road, as well as up on the north end. There is limited amount of flowering material on the east side of the road, which does face the creek, but that's because of the nature of it being on the north and the east side of the building, which really limits what type of material we can plant.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin?
As we move forward, the next thing we wanted to address, and I had some good feedback from staff, and what we are going to incorporate is what Stephen Scott Management has done with the Ellipse, and they do what's called rotating art. And so this is a lobby display in which we are going to be displaying artwork, and it's going to be coming either from MCAT or some local artists that we're going to be on a rotating basis. This is the amenity deck. You've got a little more definition to what we're expecting out there. And we really want to get into some sculpture. When we drive down Highway 5, what I really want to do is have something that you will notice up on the deck area, something that's kind of fun, avoiding anything that's incorrect, so to speak. So I just wanted to kind of look at some fun little features that I'd like to incorporate into that area. We haven't finalized it, but we are going to allocate a lot of funds for that upper deck area. These are just things that caught my attention, my eye, and some kind of fun ideas that we've come across. These are a great idea. We're going to probably for sure have these. These are actually about 8 foot tall, but they're heaters. Yeah, kind of fun. The changes that we still need to address, the walking trail, which we've addressed today with staff, and I think we've come to a good resolution on that. For the dog walking trail, it was something that I really wanted to incorporate. The issue was there's an old rickety bridge there, and Mr. Fox had asked that we connect to it. Well, I walked it. There's the bridge. You can see that. I walked it with my wife and daughter, as you can see their feet there, and the bridge is in tough shape. And that, again, where it sits and across the bridge, it leads to nowhere. But it was Mr. Fox informed me today that it was an old trail that he would like to bring back to life, so to speak. And that was our hike across it. So here's what we've kind of proposed. This is what we proposed today to get to the bridge. And you can see that we kind of do a switchback on the trail because it's very steep. But I walked it with Leslie, and thank you again for doing that, Leslie, and this shows the path in which we would use to get there. The unfortunate part, it does get very wet down below, so it's going to take some decking in the wetland area itself. And you can see then, Stu had mentioned that the city then would take care of replacing the bridge as well as finishing the trail on the other side, because I wanted to be sure we're going to do a full loop for the residents to walk the dogs. Also, what we'd like to do is, right where we cross the street, we'd like to have a sitting bench area, dog bags for people to take on the trails, and we'll also have a sign there about keeping the dogs on the leash as you walk through. This is one I had proposed earlier that we walked the other day, but this was keeping out of the wetlands. But I think for the first time, I've been encouraged to go through the wetlands. So I think that's the trail we will take. This is our walk, my family, and the dog wash. The city would like to see, again, the 2 cars, the 20 bikes. They wanted to remove some of the proof of parking. I'd like to get some clarification tonight, if I could, from staff. The part I'm a little bit confused about is the financing for the assessment for future proof of parking. Not quite sure how that works, what that would mean. The staff had asked me to actually remove some proof of parking, but we also wanted some stalls close to the entryway. We thought it was important for seniors or any elderly folks to be close to the front door. So we spent time, and I believe we got that worked out. But the report just says 4, 4, and 24 proof. There should be also a 10 stall to the east on Cochrane that I think was just a typo. And if Ms. Jeremiah could clarify that when we get to that point, would be great.
Ms. Jeremiah?
With regard to the assessment for the future proof of parking, we would be working out the details of that as part of your final approval and your development agreement. But generally speaking, we, look at the costs and have a not to exceed kind of a value and try to put some kind of language into it with regard to when we would potentially pull the trigger on that. If there were evidence of off-site parking or parking in fire lanes or, other problematic areas, then we would ask that that proof of parking be constructed at that time. I believe that we've asked for all of the proof of parking to be on the west side of the road, although there is a typo. I apologize for that in the cover memo. It does say 24 proof of parking spaces on the east of Cochrane Lane. My understanding is the east, there are issues with wetlands and conservation and such that would make that very difficult. So I apologize for the confusion with that typo.
So it should be west.
It should be west.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Costa?
And if I may, Ms. Jeremiah, there was supposed to be 10 permanent spots that are built right away, right off on the east side. I'm sorry, on the Cochrane Lane, but the east side of the building. And if and these numbers add up correctly, I just think it was a typo by earlier, just so we have a clarification on that, because we do need the parking up front by the building.
Anything else?
Yes, there are 10 permanent spots on what kind of the southeast corner of the building, and then I believe 4 more along the south side of the building, so those would be the permanent, and then the additional proof of parking would be still on the west side of Cochrane Lane, east of the building, but further north.
And the 4 by the front door, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So again, refreshing that this is suggestions of staff was to bring in the 2 cars and 20 bikes. What we'd like to suggest tonight is to bring in 1 electric car or a hybrid car, leaving the building for 24 to 36 months. If you use 50% or more, we'll continue it. If not, we'd like to remove it. The rental bikes is great. This is my thought and idea. I think I'm down by Lake Calhoun now, and I think it could be a kind of a fun, nice feature. It's a short little bike ride. This is the hourly car that we could have rental of that, work something out. And this is just the remaining pictures. So that being said, I'm available to any questions, and if I may, I'd like to introduce the group that I brought with me tonight if there's any questions. I've got Kevin Teppen and Mark Anderson from MFRA. That's our civil engineer group. We got Barb Halverson, who's the president of Stephen Scott Management, who's going to be the managing partner as well as development partner, Beta Development, with us. Todd Mohagan, who is our architect. The treat, my first night ever that my sons joined me for a public forum. Brandon, who's a police officer here in Eden Prairie. And then Rick Fensky with Weiss Construction, and Garrett Farmer, who's working with me, and Hunter Emerson. So any questions, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Case.
Mr. Carlson, I was out to the site today, and then I had the chance also to speak with the owner of BP and then the general regional manager, I think, for Buca. Sounds like it's on certain particular evenings, Buca does have parking issues, at least perceptually from their point of view. Are you concerned not about necessarily your people parking in their spots, but the opposite? And because we're proposing actually some spots, in essence, lining along with Buca. How would we keep that from occurring?
I would say that I am by there probably 3-4 times a day. One of the busiest I've ever seen it was Sunday night. But even Sunday night, there was still one car in the back parking lot, which was the chef's car. There's still not one car in that back lot.
So you're not concerned?
I am not concerned at all about it.
Being occupied by Buca patrons?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, not right now.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on Mitchell Crossing? Okay. Is there a motion?
Should we close the public hearing first and then talk? Sure. Would you suggest? I guess we don't have to do that. I would move that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
I would like to make sure before we do our final approval of this that we know if it's one car or 2 cars or 10 bikes or 20 bikes, and have all the pieces of this nailed down within the development agreement before it finalizes. Because it doesn't sound like we're 100% there, and I don't want the final development approval to go forward until all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. We used to do that a long time ago, and we didn't get stuff. So I do want to make sure that it's there before final reading.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Case again.
Lit up like a Christmas tree there. I agree with that, but it'd be great. I would hope we'd walk out of here tonight with all that worked out. I was, well, first place, let me back up and say that I've, in general, been supportive of this project from the beginning because, except for Presbyterian Homes, I don't think we've, which I guess if we count that as an apartment project, then I sit corrected from my statement from the last meeting, but we haven't had a project apartment project come before us since 2 of you have been on this council, so that's a long time. Yeah. And this is really, really nice for, I think, a barometer for economic development in this city, that this kind of project is coming here. So I just am really happy about that. I think it's also a great site. You know, if you're going to put a 5-story apartment building in somewhere, you're going to impact neighbors. And when I did stop by BP today, and I ended up calling the owner of that gas station, and if she's here, she can nod or something. I asked her if I could say a comment that she made to me, but she's very excited, and should be. It doesn't rocket science to figure out that she's going to increase her business. But she did say, I asked her about any concerns at all about parking. She goes, you know, the advantages in the business world, in the business climate for her, and she presumed for Buca, but the advantages far outweigh any potential hassles of negatives that she might encounter that she felt she could really deal with, because she's just very excited about this project coming right next to her door. I haven't had any time to really think about this car-bike thing. I was kind of surprised that came up. And my only initial thought is, well, my first initial thought is, in theory, great idea, right? I mean, this idea that you could have an urban living apartment complex where, in theory, down in Minneapolis or downtown New York, we've all had friends that have moved to a place like that, and they don't purchase a car. And so what a great idea to have the access to bikes. And then if you do need the car for the one thing a month, you know, what a great idea to have your apartment complex own this car that rents out. I can't intuitively right now think of a single person that would move into this project that didn't have a car. Because if it was over on the other side of the highway, I could understand it. You know, I would get it completely. In fact, that's a great spot over by the transit hub to have this kind of concept. We should have, you know, mandated that project to have it. But this one, you know, to me doesn't make sense. But I'm more than willing to say, well, what the heck, let's give it a shot. But to me, that's the one car. Let's do one car. Let it run a 6-month, run a 12-month, I don't care. Just run a trial, keep track of the data. If it's working like crazy, I would think the apartment complex would want to maybe get into a second car. And if it's not working at all, which is my ignorant best guess, then let's free them to not have the car. It just doesn't make sense. Plus, it's taking up a parking stall. And then the second is the bikes. I mean, again, I think great. In fact, the bikes make more sense to me, I think, for the leisurely, you know, a lot of these people may not own a bike, or if they're young graduates from college, the bike's still at home in, you know, Connecticut or something. So, I mean, it makes sense to have some bikes. 10, 20, I don't know. I don't know that matters. I suppose, again, are we just adding an encumbrance to this project where we say 20, that's arbitrary, why not 30? I mean, why not 10? Run it down as a trial. Again, they would want, I think, to add if it was a hot idea. If it's not being used at all, then again, do the same thing with the car and free this development not to have that either. So I mean, I personally tonight would go with one car, 10 bikes. But again, they're all arbitrary numbers. I just want to make sure that the thing works and that we have someplace to go or down the way if it is working or it's not working.
Thank you. Councilmember Wickstrom.
Yeah, thank you. I really support this project and plan to approve it. I think the reason we didn't get to that point last time is that there were details that really did need to be ironed out, and I feel so good about this. I thought from the very beginning that it was very innovative, and I think that is one of the reasons that we do end up in the top 10 over and over again, is because we continue to think differently, and we continue to be innovative in this city, and this is a good example of that. I love it that it addresses the changing demographic. I think we're going to see, I think we're going to fill it up, so I'm excited about that. As far as the details of one car or two cars, I am fine with one car. Let's figure it out and see if that's going to work. Give it 18 months, 12 months, 18 months. I don't care about that either. And I'm happy about 10 bikes. Sounds good to me. Those are kind of the details. This is a great project. I think we need to get it going. So I love it.
Councilmember Aho.
Well, I agree, too. I'm very much supportive of this project. I think it is a great project, and I think you've done a lot of nice things to make it even a better project. And I'm excited that you've added some nice components that I think people will want to live there. And again, the car and the bike, one car I think is great, and I think we should give you the flexibility to see what works in the market. If one car is stressed out and being overused, I think you'll realize that, and you'll say, boy, we should really add a second one. And so I don't think we should tie your hands to two cars. And in terms of what kind of vehicle, I don't think we should dictate that either. Whatever kind of vehicle you want to provide is great, and I think you'll do the right thing in the end, and I think you'll be well served. And number of bikes, I think you're going to put the right number of bikes there, and so I don't want to get involved in nitpicking and micromanaging and dictating how many bikes you have available. I think you'll do what meets your needs. So I think you have a great project here. I'd like to see us pass it through.
I agree with everything that's been said. It looks great, and I love seeing the public art that you're proposing. trust you'll pick out something great and fun to go in keeping with the whole concept that you have here. I like people seeing different ideas that people have for public art, so it's fine with me. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, just real quick. Yeah, I like the flowering plants and such that you've added. I think the idea of doing the rotating public art, in some section is a great idea, maybe something permanent. And I like the roof deck adding to the outdoor space. And, whatever you do up there to make it usable for a couple of extra months a year sounds great, too, in Minnesota. So I think this project has improved. I am excited about trying, the car and the bikes idea. I think it gives people an extra reason to move in. And I think it brings a little of the urban apartment into Eden Prairie that perhaps we've been lacking. So I'm excited to see how it goes, and I very much want to make sure that it goes within the apartment too. So thank you for updating what we had seen before, and it looks like it could be a very interesting new place.
Thank you. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I will.
Did we have the public hearing?
Yeah,
We
are
closed it.
Oh, that's right.
I move to adopt the resolution for guide plan change from community commercial to high-density residential on 3.105 acres, and adopt the resolution for planned unit development concept review on 3.015 acres, and approve first reading of the ordinance for planned unit development district review with waivers and zoning district change from community commercial to RM-2.5 on 3.105 acres, and adopt the resolution for preliminary plat on 3.105 acres into one lot, and direct staff to prepare a development agreement incorporating staff and commission recommendations and council conditions. Approve and authorize issuance of a land alteration permit for the Mitchell Crossing 2012 project, subject to release by the city engineer upon determination that the final contract documents conform to plans stamped dated August 21st, 2012, as approved by the city council.
Second.
Mr. Case?
Just that the motion itself read, for staff to come back, incorporating the staff and commission and council, and they're different. So I think we need to be clear what we're voting on tonight, that we're talking one car,
Right.
10 bikes.
10 bikes. Mm-hmm.
What else did we talk about? Any changes from commission or staff?
Just the number.
And then the changes in the wording.
Right, east to west.
Correct.
There was some question you had about exchange proof of parking.
That was how they set up the escrow, or how is that addressed? I'm not quite sure. I've never experienced that before.
Well,
There's a staff conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues related to securities that are pretty typical with the development agreement.
And you'll be working.
And we'll be working on that between this and the second reading. And so your feedback tonight on the car and bikes will be incorporated into the development agreement. And the Plan Commission, I believe, did approve the one car, or recommended the one car and 10 bikes, and that's what we're hearing tonight. So we'll incorporate that into final approval.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much.
Welcome.
Can't wait to see it. Okay, last item under public hearings is Dos Manitas Daycare. Mr. Getchell?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We alluded to this project earlier. This is in the same general area. We have a daycare request here for a planned unit development concept review on 0.98 acres with waivers and a zoning district amendment within the community commercial zoning district, and a site plan review for this project located at Mitchell Road and Cochran Lane. So this is an area that is behind Buca and just next to this development that you approved for first reading tonight, that had been to the Plan Commission at a prior meeting as well for a site plan of an 8,500 square foot daycare building in an outside activity area. I do believe we have the project proponent here to provide an overview of the project, answer any questions you have prior to public hearing.
Thank you. Hello.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm Quinn Hudson, a principal with C&H Architects, and I do have some slides to introduce and walk through on the projects. First of all, I'd like to mention to you that the owner's wasn't able to come tonight, but asked me to pass on their excitement to be coming to Eden Prairie and really looking forward to being part of this community. As we mentioned, this organization, Dos Manitas here, they operate under the name of Jardín Mágico, and they were founded in 2002. They've been an award-winning Spanish immersion daycare and preschool, and again, they have 3 other locations around the metro. So, the site, as you're quite familiar with, is next to Buca and across the street from your previous application, off of Mitchell Road and Cochrane. Landscaping-wise, we're surrounding the site with a lot of full-size and ornamental trees, good amount of bushes and perennials, so it's well landscaped. The red section in the middle is the 8,500 square foot building, 19 parking stalls out in the front, and then playground to the east.
Can you leave that slide right there for a second, Your Honor? Could I ask something? Just because the slide's there, so you don't have to pull it back up. Proof of parking is on the east side beyond the playground, correct?
The proof of parking would be...
And you would get at it by some kind of a drive that would go on the north side of the building along that where all the trees and things are?
It go along the south side, but we do have a slide...
Do you get at it from the south side?
Yes. There is a slide coming up that shows that as well.
I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure that before... I apologize.
No problem at all.
Wait.
But,
I could clarify that.
so anyway, yes, so the playground's on the east side and the plantings around it. This is the site of the with the site plan as intended to be built, with the parking for the daycare itself. You can see a little bit of the classrooms surrounding the building, and then again the playground on the right side. On that. This slide addresses the proof of parking. It shows the parking on the east side, and then it is accessed with a 2-lane drive around the south. This, of course, would be the proof of parking that would be needed if the building was sold or reused as a different function.
So you would move the playground then? It takes out...
The playground would go away. We have plenty of parking for the needs of a daycare. But your ordinance requires us to show proof of parking if the building was changed into a different use, showing that there is some flexibility for that site.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, the amount that we show on the previous slide here is more than enough based on their past experience for the daycare itself. This is the colored image rendering of the project. The building has a manufactured stone base. The upper portion is a tan brick with a silver band, shading band over the window areas. The center atrium is really the focal point on the project. We have the 2-story open atrium area with the tinted glass, and then a stucco tower that kind of accents that atrium area. I have a view here from the ramp area off of Highway 5212, just to get an idea of what the scale is, and also, showing the screening of mechanical units on the roof. And as you can see from this direction, that atrium is still sticking up, and you can really use it as an interesting identity point. And then off Cochrane Road, the kind of the entrance drive area for that. So that was the quick picture. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
I think in the Planning Commission minutes, I read that the report from the proponent, you all, was that you had been in conversations with Buca, and currently Buca, I believe, leases or something that kind of undeveloped lot in the back. And that is there a future arrangement or agreement that Buca would have options on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night when you're not using it?
Yes, there has been discussions about having some arrangement to allow parking on there and off hours. The timing is really very works real well. It's a good combination. Obviously, the daycare closes at 6. And isn't open on weekends at all. And, I'm sure the busiest time for Buca, would be on those off hours. There has been discussions. There's a lot of interest. Obviously, nothing formalized until the project actually proceeds.
That's good, because I would encourage that. Simply gets back to when we do new developments, we try not to impact neighbors, and Buca surely should have probably planned ahead back when they had their development approval, but they've expressed, even though Mr. Carlson did not agree, but they've expressed some concern about their current parking needs on certain busy nights. And so we can't, I don't think that's our business as a city to get involved necessarily there, but I would certainly encourage both sides to talk and hopefully work out some kind of an arrangement.
Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience that wants to address the council on Dos Manitas daycare? Okay.
I would move to close the public hearing. Would you like me to proceed?
Sure.
And adopt the resolution for plan unit development concept review on .98 acres and approve the first reading of the ordinance for plan unit development district review with waivers and zoning district amendment within the community commercial zoning district on .98 acres and direct staff to prepare a development agreement incorporating staff and commission recommendations and council conditions, and approve and authorize issuance of a land alteration permit for, and I don't speak Spanish, Dos Manitas? Am I close? Daycare facility. I should probably go there and sit down with the 3-year-olds and learn this project, subject to release by the city engineer upon determination that the final contract documents conform to plans stamp dated July 16, 2012, as approved by the City Council, and approve and authorize issuance of a footing and foundation permit for the Dos Manitas Daycare Facility project, subject to release by the chief building official that the building permit conforms to plans stamp dated July 16, 2012, as approved by the City Council.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The motion passes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good evening. Welcome.
All right. Payment of claims. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any items to question? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Aho.
Aye.
Councilmember Butcher-Wickstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Case.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Terrell-Lukens.
Aye. Thank you. Report of City Manager, Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one action item for you tonight and then an update added tonight. As you recall and as you know, the Hennepin County Service Center had closed earlier this year, a decision by the county board, and I know they're evaluating several more of their service centers, but probably one of the biggest benefits to our community members was a deputy registrar service for license tabs, driver's license, passports, and other issues related to driver's licenses and motor vehicles. And we recently received notice from the state of Minnesota that there is a proposal for a private entity to offer deputy registrar services potentially in Eden Prairie. And when a request like that is made, both Hennepin County and the city of Eden Prairie need to decline officially and offer those services on our own. So if you look at the agenda, we don't want to decline an offer for someone to have these services in the city. We want someone to have those services in the city. And while I identified AAA as that business and the potential location, I know that they still need to negotiate all the final details, and they also would consider other locations in the city as well, which is a positive sign. So even though it may occur at the Metropolitan Ford site location, in addition to many other amenities that they would offer, they are also keeping other options open as well. But the action that the council needs to take is that officially declining an offer that we would operate our own deputy registrar. And then we'll work with and support another entity that does.
One question I had on that. I understand that the thing that's prompting this is the fact that somebody is interested in doing this, so we have to say, yeah, we're not going to do it. If they end up not doing it, does this declination of providing the service continue until we change our mind and take action? Or do we have to make a similar action every time some new person comes in thinking about providing the service?
That's a good question, and that's a question that I had asked as well, and this can apply to this situation. So I don't know if we necessarily need to decline the offer again, but if for some reason this does not occur at some future date, I think we could reconsider our declination. So we could undo that, but I'm not aware that we have to do this each time someone's looking at a certain site.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
I would move to decline the offer by the State of Minnesota Department of Public Safety for the City of Eden Prairie to offer its own Deputy Registrar of Services based on its support of another proposal to offer similar services in Eden Prairie.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. The motion passes. Comcast, Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to provide an update since our last meeting in July. As you recall, Council approved first and second reading of franchise agreement with Comcast, and I'm not going to get into the details of the franchise agreement. I only want to speak to the public access studio issue. And to give you an update as well, that all 5 cities now, Richfield, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and us, have all approved franchise agreements. So I actually got an email today, copied on an email from Brian Grogan, sending to Comcast all of the franchise agreements. So they've been executed in all cities. All 5 cities have approved the franchise. But you may recall the one issue or sticking point or yet to be resolved concern was the closure of the studio that Comcast ran and operated, which is not common. But as you know, the vast majority of programming is provided to the commission or, in this case, Comcast. But a small percentage of it did have some programs that were produced in that studio. In fact, we've identified 10 producers in the 5-city area that we've been in contact with to talk about this issue. First of all, Comcast agreed to keep that current studio open until the end of August. Understanding that, I think that allowed a few more weeks for some people to do some programming, but is also pretty short notice for closure. In the meantime, our commission attorney, Brian Grogan, has negotiated with the Lake Minnetonka Cable Commission for the 5 cities to access that studio in Spring Park near Minnetonka through the end of the year. And as recently as this week, all 5 cities have agreed to be a part of that. So you could have had, Eden Prairie and maybe 1 or 2 cities said, we want to be a part of providing this free use of local access studio space for our producers, but maybe 1 or 2 other cities did not. All 5 cities have agreed. So the good news then is that the commission then can execute an agreement with the Lake Minnetonka group, and we'd like to move forward with that. And then we would rent the space, and the cost would obviously be much, much less.
And it would be borne by the commission.
It would be borne by the commission, not the individual cities. And as you know, the commission was given money by Comcast to deal with this transition. And so this, we feel, would be part of this transition. So it's not money directly from the city. It's from the commission. It's much less than what it costs to operate a Comcast studio. Provides us with time through the end of the year, and the commission will continue to meet September, October. I know the city managers meet in September. The full commission meets in October to consider even longer range options. But I think the positive thing is that idea that you're not having all the individual cities also looking at 2 or 3 or 4 different studios. You're using a current public access studio. I can't say that that particular location is the long-term answer. But I think this is something that benefits us in the shorter term. Again, even though it's a limited number of producers and programs, we can continue this through the end of the year.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Nelson, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, Spring Park's sort of a long way away from Eden Prairie. I hope we might be looking at a Bloomington option that might be closer for all the cities before the end of the year, or some little closer option than something like Spring Park. I realize this gives us some time to analyze and look into it, which I'm very happy to see. But it's a definite drive.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Thank you. Councilmember Case.
I couldn't agree more, especially if it was a long-term solution, which, of course, it's not. And you got to remember, too, we have just trying to think how many residents are in 5 cities. So we have 200,000 people that would have potential to use this, and we're talking 10. So there are 10 producers that this is going to really help out, which I'm glad we're doing it, and I think we need to do all that we can to incentivize and to promote public access. But in terms of the users, the producers, remember that 90% of it's being done outside of studios and has been for the last several years. And that will continue, and people can continue to do these amazing things on, this is not a commercial, though I realize now they're #1 corporation in the world, but Apple. If you have an Apple computer, you can do just amazing things with video. So it is important. We need to continue. But for this 3-month period, we're talking 10 users. Now, after that, the commission meets in October, and this is order of business number 1. And we look at, okay, what do we do from next year? What do we do in 2013? And then longer term, what do we do after that? And you know, there's, like I said at the last meeting, or when we approved this, it's just exciting. There's so many opportunities. And I want to look at school districts. I want to look at the possibility of Bloomington. I'd like to look at, maybe we do park our studio and invest. We have $200,000, not to all spend on this, but that we can spend on equipment. So we can build a really quality state-of-the-art studio for the long term, 5-10 years out. So let's relax. We've covered this for 3 months for the 10 people, and we're certainly going to look at better alternatives for the months to come.
All right, thank you. And no action is needed on this.
There is not, Mayor.
Okay, one final thing. We have an overview of city development fees. Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. At our previous city council meeting, there was discussion about development fees, certain development fees that we charge here in Eden Prairie, and really, I think, how we relate to some of our peer cities. And over the past couple of weeks, we've tried to reach out and gather that data. This data is a little bit difficult to get our hands on because it's not readily available, and the data we could find is somewhat dated, but nonetheless, there is some data out there. And specifically looking at SACs and WACs, those seem to be the two charges that garner a lot of questions from the development community as they're moving their project through the process. And what we were able to find is that a study conducted in 2000 by Met Council's Environmental Services found that it is a pretty predominant fee that's out there. 60 out of 100 polled cities in the metro area charge some local SAC and WAC fee. And that was confirmed with another study that we were able to come across, a more recent 2008 study conducted by Advanced Engineering and Environmental Services. And they noted that there are 64% of the metro area communities that have a local WAC charge, and there's 93% that have a local SAC charge. So it is a common fee that you can find out there. And when you break down the SAC and the WAC, what you'll find is most cities have a higher WAC, the water access charge fee, than they do the sewer access charge fee. And I think that's because the sewer system is centralized. Met Council delivers that service. There's some economies of scale because there's just a handful of large plants, whereas the WAC, most cities build their own water treatment plants, so you lose a little bit of that economy of scale, and that's probably why the WAC charges are a little bit higher. But how we compare with the other metro cities, I would guess that we fall somewhere very close to the median charge for both WAC and SAC. Right now, if a development were to come in, the local WAC charge is $570 per unit, where, the local SAC is $570. The local WAC is $2,500, so quite a bit higher than the SAC, but what I find is that that's pretty commensurate with the rest of the metro area communities. As we were doing this research, we also saw a number of other charges that you find. The garbage access fee, a new one, the GAC, I'd never heard of. But there are emergency service fees, there's trail access fees, affordable housing fees, street access fees, a whole slew of fees that you don't find here in Eden Prairie. And one thing that I did want to highlight is that a few months ago, this City Council actually voted to reduce the local WAC and SAC charge. We have 3 tiers. You have the residential, which is the most affordable. The next highest is the industrial and office. And then the highest tier that we have for SAC and WAC is commercial. And the council voted to eliminate that 3rd tier. And what that means to a developer is about $1,000 per commercial unit in reduced SAC and WAC fees. So there was an effort this year to offset some of those costs. And I will say that's been very popular with the development community. I've listed in my report some of the fees that we have, what they specifically are, based on residential, your industrial, commercial, and office as well. And then the last thing that I want to touch on is the other side of our revenue. We know that it takes a certain revenue to operate our system, and our two sources are the SAC and WAC, the development fees, and then we also have our monthly utility bills that all of our customers pay. And some combination of those fees have to support all of our enterprise. And because we have taken an approach that development should pay its fair share, development should support development, and we do have the SAC and WAC, what it has done is actually allowed us to keep relatively low monthly user fees. When you look at 34 cities that submit their typical monthly bill to a firm that studies them here in the metro area, what we found is we have the 7th lowest monthly bill compared to those other 34 communities. So it's allowed us to keep our competitive edge, and I think it allows us to fund our enterprise system where it needs to be funded. So through our research, we found that it appears that we're competitive. We're somewhere within the average is where I like to be. I don't like to be on the high side, and I really don't like to be on the low side too, because to me that sends a message that you're not investing in your infrastructure like you should. So I feel comfortable with where we're at with our fees, and if there are any questions, I can entertain those.
Thank you. Mr. Case, you have a question?
I mean, I got to admit, initially looking through this, that, and this is going to be an awful pun, but the whack seemed out of whack. And it seemed a little bit, not just a little bit high, but significantly high. But I do understand the zero-sum piece of this, that I'm not suggesting we raise every resident's water bill to accomplish, lowering on the whack side, especially since at this point we are fairly built out. And on some level, we've all paid our fair share of building out the system. And so the new ones on the block should pay a fair share. So I get that piece of it. But there are some specific instances that it seems overly punitive that I'm not sure how we deal with the individual cases and precedent. But again, it gets back to the only examples I've personally become familiar with are the hair salon idea, and because it's per sink. And so they end up getting hit with these little tiny operators trying to open up a 2 or 3 sink operation will get hit with a $4,000, $8,000, $12,000 SAC and WAC bill. And it just seems like there might be a way somehow, and maybe there's not, to deal with that. And then restaurants get hit. Now, maybe that's, again, appropriate. There's a whole lot of wastewater going out. I kind of get that piece. But again, I'm just looking at ways that we feel like we're a very pro-business community, and we've gotten good feedback from businesses that have experienced us being pro-business, but we've gotten some not as positive feedback from businesses that have experienced us not being, and typically it's around some of these SAC and WAC fees. And I just wonder, and if you want to come back some other day, we don't have to talk about tonight, or just informally even, maybe there's no way. If there's no way, come and talk to me privately, and that's fine. But if there is some way that we could individually help out a few struggling small businesses with this particular upfront SAC and WAC, because the system is built out. It was meant to build the system quickly when we were undeveloped. Now we're developed. So it might behoove us to look at a little bit different opportunity for some of these small businesses. So otherwise, this looks good, all of it.
Any other comments? Okay. Thank you very much for that report. We appreciate it. Any other business in front of the council? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.